Saltwater History, episode 203, Wednesday night. Rich-eyed. It was an eventful weekend.
Extremely just rent just had the illegitimate Trump administration and the idiot in chief himself, who's just really the isn't he not just the epitome and representation of the dying empire, the idiocracy and kleptocracy that has been allowed to govern thanks to the proper functioning, unfortunately, of American democracy in all of its resplendent glory. But yeah, he's at the head of the dying, convulsing monster, and of course, when it's in the death throes, it lashes out against perceived and real enemies. In this case, it's just a perceived enemy, and you have the Zionist Talmudic regime in Israel directing all of its remaining and residual wrath from a once great era, a once great century, I suppose, more than a century, to uh, to a victim, a victim that obviously is in no way meets the qualifications of an enemy of the American people or a threat to the American people, and that's Iran.
What's the time for?
It's time for guillotines, I think. That's at least I think
I
that's where
can't
we
believe
should go.
I can't believe this is over 10 years old.
Yeah, it's definitely aged well. And it's there's no greater time to understand maybe that's the t proper action, especially as we're going to see. We're talking about just today or hours ago, war combat veteran Marines like Brian McGinnis getting kicked out of congressional hearings and have his arm broken while he's being secured by Capitol Police by a sitting senator who apparently was a failed Navy SEAL and is obviously too fat to do anything but, wrestle a Marine when he's already got three guys on him and break his arm. So yeah, that's where we're at. So it's time for guillotines. The time for the time for ballot has gone, or type some sort of solution that comes through voting is long gone. I can't believe that I was in a it was a couple of years ago we were having a an honest debate about the efficacious nature or lack thereof of voting. I mean, we're so far past that. Uh, Time and history have really sped up.
Yeah. Do you want to play the song?
Yeah, let's have some fun with this. Hmm.
It is pretty scary how well that aged.
Right.
That could have came out yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, credit to Trevor Moore. Trevor Moore has been featured in the podcast before on our episode where we featured him about the preschool or kindergarten substitute teacher who really lays down the truth about 9/11 and and the supposed moon landing and other conspiracies to the class. So he's good at skits and he's certainly good at songs that have, well, the song in particular is very fitting for today.
And then, so with obviously the news over the weekend, give us the gut reaction right away. You check X or Twitter, and what's the gut reaction?
Revulsion, just disgust and anger that what is it's so pat in the past. It's just anachronistic to try to imagine what kind of other dimension and alternative reality are the Pete Hegseths and Marco Rubios and JD Vances and all these other people. I mean, there's not one person in the Trump administration of any significance who has the slightest bit of integrity. Because if they did, they would resign. Why? Tulsi Gabbard sold T-shirts years ago saying no war with Iran, right? As Dave Smith said, is she going to refund that money? What just an absolute, these are just hucksters and criminals. And unless they face severe repercussions. And I mean, repercussions that aren't, oh, they're going to be tied up in court about the illegality of their actions. Dude, there has to be accountability. Like, I mean, and they're all of them, including the including Caroline Levitt, who's just the propagandist in chief. She's just out there spewing lies about what because they don't even know what the purpose of the war is, other than when they have the misfortune on their part of actually speaking the truth, like Marco Rubio said, and announced that essentially it was Israel prompted it, and Israel wants this. And then Netanyahu, in an interview just, what was it, yesterday or the day before, of course he doesn't say this in English, but in Hebrew, he says, "Well, we've been cooking this up for 40 years, and Donald Trump's finally had the courage and the gumption to do it for us." I mean, that we're this whatever shred of the country is left of the American system of governance, it's wholly owned. It's a wholly owned subsidiary and vassal state of a Jewish, largely atheistic, Talmudic ethno state the size of New Jersey. I think of the incongruity too. I was contemplating movies like Mel Gibson's The Patriot or these rah-rah patriotic movies that are part and parcel of Hollywood's messaging and propaganda, right? And the how how could you work in that after um I think of just another patriotic movie other than The Patriot. Nothing's come to mind. You know, even something like the Top Gun series or the Maverick and this or Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick the sequel. I mean, this whole body, we're the righteous actors upon the world stage, and we're gonna rein in rogue states and make them capitulate and be a part of, if not submit to the civilized world. What's civilized as being the big bully for the largest terrorist state that is Israel and the face of the globe, and the heinous targeting of civilians. I mean, all of, and then you have these mindless morons. There's this guy on Twitter, Dr. Thomas Carr OP, he's a third order Dominican. He made an argument that this war, as it's been launched, is not only legal and constitutional, but it meets the demands and criteria
Oh,
of
wow.
Catholic just war theory. I mean, that was
I
just
didn't see
further
that
proof for
one.
me. Third, and I speak of this as a full-fledged former Dominican in formation. Third order Dominicans are some of the dumbest, most spacious people you'll ever meet in your life. I don't know where they come from. I think the intellectual heritage of the order attracts them. So they just want that OP after the name, so they have some no notoriety or some connection to the luminaries of the Dominican past. But there are no Jordan of Saxonies, and there are no Catherine of Sienas, even though she was a third order Dominican, so she's the exception. But that are the shining lights that you'd be happy to have a candle flicker among the intellects that are third order Dominicans. And I remember, and any Dominican will tell you the third order is just a bane.
Why is that?
Everyone's like, oh shit, I got to go to a third order meeting now, and I just explained it to you. I think they're just
I know,
pseudo
but
intellectuals.
what separates what I don't get that still.
Oh, you don't know what a third order is?
I understand what you said, but
Oh.
how does it so it basically just attracts all the midwits or dumb is it worse than
It's
midwits?
worse.
It's worse.
A midwit would look like Jordan of Saxony or Augustine among a crowd of third order Dominicans.
That's fascinating to me. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a bunch of pseudo intellectual dimwits, is what they are.
Okay.
hmm So yeah, I mean, we could go over. I have the basic criteria for coming from the catechism. Let's just very plainly from the 1993 catechism. So, I mean, this is not some Council of Trent hardline, give it to me fast and quick kind of Catholicism. It's nuanced, as it tends to be. All right. So, of course, just war doctrine is divided into two categories, right? There's use ad bellum, that's the right to go to war. What are the conditions on the ground that would justify the use of such lethal violence and the application thereof? And then, of course, we have jus in bello, which means how war is to be properly conducted if it, unfortunately, as a last resort, has to be. So here are the four central criteria of jus ad bellum. First, the damage inflicted by the aggressor on the nation or community of nations must be lasting, grave, and certain. So this establishes a sufficiently serious just cause, namely that this is typically understood as a grave injustice or aggression that poses a real or enduring threat. Did Iran pose a real, enduring, and serious threat to the United States? And sorry, unless you're buying every line of Israeli propaganda for the past 40 years, or you believe like some of these morons who are just neocon has-beens, like that Mark Thiessen guy, for example, that, well, this is, you hear this on social Twitter or even in conversation. This is really a 40-year, like a 40-year war, because after all, they took our hostages in 79. All right, if you're going to be that myopic and think that an Islamic theocratic regime that came to power in 79 just all of a sudden became radically anti-American at the same time and just to piss off the superpower of the world rather than gain its, I don't know, support. It took American hostages for 400 and whatever days. I mean, I lived through that. I remember being a kid and remembering that and how so horrible that was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, 1979, people back then thought, and into 1980, they would say, well, why did the Iranians hate us so much? They'd actually ask the critical question, yeah? Oh, does it have something to do with our just uncritical and complete support for their recently turned enemy? It's fascinating because in the first um, 25 years of Israel's existence, their foreign policy, Israeli foreign policy, was much more accommodating toward Iran and Shia Muslims, and in large part waged war and saw as existential enemies the Sunni Muslim and Arab states. And then there was a shift because what ended up happening was partially through the wars where Israel and the United States were victorious against the Arab and Gulf states and the Levantine Muslim states like Egypt and Syria and Jordan. Well, because of that, Iran stood as really the only viable threat or contender for hegemony in the region. So it just shifted, and they, uh, after especially the Shah left or was ousted, well, then Iran becomes the enemy in chief of Israel, and they've been plotting ever since to get the great Satan of the United States to vanquish the Iranian regime. I mean, despite all these facts I mean, did you know that the Ayatollah Khomeini had issued a fatwa, which was a Islamic solemn command not to create nuclear weapons? So it was a part of the religious
Wow.
doctrine of Shia Islam in Iran from its supreme leader that they weren't because they were so utterly immoral in his eyes. Yes. And note, people even if you were to just as the from the historical perspective, even if you're going to say that 1953 meant nothing, and that the CIA and Mossad hadn't been in charge of, along with the British, of ensuring Mossadegh's coup in 53, which we had an episode on All the Shah's Men, all right, by Stephen Pinzer, and we are Kinzer, and we really broke that down that book. But of course, in 53, none other than Kermit Roosevelt, that's Teddy Roosevelt's grandson, right, led Operation Ajax to oust the democratically elected president. What was his mortal sin in the eyes of the Western powers in Israel? Well, he wanted just to nationalize or keep a larger share of the profits of the Iranian oil industry. So, well, you can't have that, right? Even as the ethos and the stated policy of Western powers post World War II was going to toward decolonization, toward the Western powers stepping back and away from the exploitation that had become so de rigueur in the prior decades of the 20th century and certainly in the prior century in the 19th through old-fashioned imperialism. But that was all just rhetoric because you have the French going into Vietnam at the same time and fighting for its colonial heritage and past in Southeast Asia, which inspires yet another war, of course, which was a quagmire. And this is shaping up to be just that as well for the United States. So you just have this clumsy, idiotic nation that seems like it should have matured and yet gets pulled around and gets dog walked by Israel of all states. So yeah, so I was alluding to, okay, so let's just say that the 1953 thing didn't happen and the United States unmerited and injudicious, I guess, imprudent to be sure, blank carte blanche support for the Shah in Iran and his heinous regime. So we won't even talk about that. Let's talk about how the fact that apparently this war has gone on and these hostilities between the United States and Iran from 1979 when they took the hostages. Yeah, it was so egregious, the taking of the hostages. And the Iranians are so otherworldly. And as they're characterized through propaganda today, they're just crazies, as Lindsey Graham would say, or Ted Cruz, just irrational, and they worship a strange God and their strange religion. Yeah, they were so horrible that was it 4 or 5 years after, just 4 or 5 years. So we're talking 1983, 1984, 1985, into the even 1986 and 87. The United States was selling arms to Iran so that it could conduct its own war and send those the secretly and illegally to subvert Congress, send the funds to the Contras in Nicaragua. Thus, we have the Iran-Contra affair. So don't tell me how heinous it is and how unfathomable it is to try to negotiate with these horrible Iranians and how yeah the best interests of and it's just so galling to think that we're doing this for the Iranian people and we're come on, you're gonna liberate those squirrel girls, you're gonna liberate that 150 or 160 schoolgirls. You see the pictures of the mass graves they had to dig for those schoolgirls. Yeah, and this is from the same two powers that laud their precision and technological and strategic bombing. Well, yeah, that means that you did that on purpose. You're inflicting harm on a city like Tehran of 9 million densely populated urban area like Tehran.
9 million?
9 million live in Tehran. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then you kill the Ayatollah. It's just not only is it evil, the conduct of this war, it's so stupid. You make the Ayatollah certainly had enemies in Iran, and it's a nation of it's a country of multinational and ethnic groups. Yeah, some of them more allied with the Shah and the Islamic Revolution than others, and you make him a martyr by killing him, along with his 14-month-old granddaughter. So, I hate. I said this the other night when I was conversing with a friend. You and I hate the state. It is part of our ideological, philosophical, and I would indeed say religious conclusion. But I have a special because I believe that the virtue of patriotism lives in me, and I love our country, but I hate with the intensity of 1,000 suns Donald Trump and the political elite class. On that, I think maybe we should just play the video that dropped today of the Marine Brian McInnes. The way he was treated at a congressional hearing shows everything about what the dynamics are here. Let's go ahead and play that.
This war for Israel. Let's go. Come on, let's go. America does not want to send its sons and daughters to war for Israel. Your inability to name that shows your exemptness as leaders. This is wrong. No. And nobody wants to fight for Israel. A reminder to all our Commandant, please stand up as a Marine and stand up for America. No one wants to fight for Israel.
Sir, thank you for your service.
The senator broke his hand. The senator broke his hand.
He's a Marine. Somebody come help him.
Control your Senate committee.
Look at you guys. You're robots.
U.S. senator.
You won't even look back. Look at you guys. You're like robots. Oh my God, what is happening? And you're not even looking back. Any of you four-star generals. Oh my God, what is happening right now? Eyes front, robots. Shame. Shame. Oh my God, you guys. What did I just see? I'm getting out of here.
That's fine. Everybody sit down, please.
Oh my God, what is happening?
Okay, good. No, it's not.
Oh my God.
It's disgusting.
Oh my God, you guys.
So he has the right to protest. You could argue that he's not doing it in the proper form. Radical evil times call for radical action. Yeah? Because it's not as though those generals who refuse to actually look at him as he's getting tackled and his arm broken, the same generals who are supposedly the ones who have the greatest care and concern for the lives and well-being of their soldiers. You have a decorated combat veteran Marine in full uniform, by the way, saying that no one wants to die for Israel. No one wants to die for Israel, because that's what the war is about, dying for Israel's greater Israel project, for their unrestrained expansion and disgusting imperialistic goals. And the slave-like conditions, worse than slave-like conditions in which they hold their occupied populations in the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, for example. And they break his arm and they usher him out.
That guy's a hero.
That guy's a hero, and everyone, including those politicians who were seated at the dais, or the generals that were in the crowd that were listening, it reminds me of there was a passage, a lot of the objections of the anti-federalists in the ratification processes toward ratifying the Constitution, in that intermittent period between its submission in writing in Philadelphia and then going back to the state conventions for ratification. There was a quote from, and I can't remember who it was, but there was a representative, I believe it was from North or South Carolina, it might have been Georgia, and he said, all this is going to create, this new Constitution, is an elite class who will create an enclave, a federal enclave, and those streets will be lined with gold, and they will be so distant and so distracted by their own cares and wants to have any consideration for the rest of the country. Holy shit. How prophetic is that? Your take on the Officer McGinnis?
That guy's a hero. All of those generals that wouldn't even turn around and
Just burn it. It's burn in hell, man. But all of them, unless there's some sort of wild repentance and metanoia conversion, they're all going to burn in hell for the injustice that they've perpetuated against us, that elite class. Right?
yeah, there's something sad about the generals though.
Yeah, because they're supposed to have allegiance. I mean, even in the what's the old code of the Marines, unit core God country, right? I mean, as ridiculous as that is that they put God third, but I
Right.
mean, really, they're supposed to have such enormous allegiance that they put those relationships above God and family, and yet when it comes to bowing low to whatever the powers that be in Washington and Tel Aviv, they're ready to go. And that's why I mean, someone will ask, well, what is there to be done? Well, for you and me, and that of course, the answer to that pertains to the situation that each individual finds themselves in under an occupying regime that is putting out all of the optics of somehow having democratic or representative legitimacy and doesn't. It's an oligarchy and has been for a long time. And you're being kabuki theatered into believing that you should have some sort of concern or allegiance to them. I mean, people are talking about, well, I couldn't believe this today, Charlie. Did you see that um, the Pentagon issued this missive that said, well, you know, remember that one of the causes for war was that Iranian sleeper cell that we told you about was trying to assassinate the president. There's never been a shred of evidence that has been submitted by anyone, even just made up and fabricated evidence by any of the deep state agencies and alphabet soup cabal show that that's actually a thing,
Right.
right? That wasn't just some manufactured Mossad IDF story that was fed to the CIA that fit into a larger narrative that to justify for the moronic, robotic MAGA crowd that, well, there's the Iranians are gonna try to assassinate our president. Hoorah! Fuck that. No, it never existed, and you have to be just brain dead on the scale of primordial ooze to think that. Okay. Um, so I guess we could go back to the other criteria,
Yeah.
jus ad bellum. Number two, all other means of putting an end to it must have been shown to be impractical or ineffective. This reflects the principle of last resort, namely that war may be only undertaken after nonviolent alternatives, diplomacy, sanctions, negotiation, etc., have genuinely failed. This is the thing. The United States, it's true, the United States has conducted an illegal war against Iran for decades by immorally sanctioning the Iranian people, by strangling, I mean, to the point where there's evidence that weather manipulation programs caused droughts in the countries targeted by the clean break memo and letter of those Middle Eastern states and regimes, whether it be Assad in Syria or the Lebanese government with Hezbollah being allowed to stay there, and then Iran, that there were crop failures and droughts. There nowhere else in the world where there are crop failures and droughts from 2007 to 2020 or 25 or 24, except in these places. Yeah. And then there's abundant and mountainous evidence that there were weather manipulation and climate manipulation programs going over that. And it's no surprise. I mean, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, they openly boast about how they do cloud seeding so as to make sure rainfall is concentrated around Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Unbelievable.
So don't
No.
tell me they don't have the capability to do the reverse. And then just the fact that you have Hegseth and others talking about, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, without any congressional approval or oversight, says we've been economically strangling Iran since even before the administration took power. But we certainly intensified it under the sanctions regime, and then not allowing, for example, international credit to flow into Iranian coffers or aid, anything like that. Yeah, and trying to and tariffing and even further sanctioning any nation that wants to trade with Iran. I mean, think too. It's also something to consider that not once, like in June of 2025, but now the negotiations were not held in any sort of good faith. The negotiations were just a diversionary tactic, where Iranian officials are there And then Trump launches the attacks against their country. This is, it's a synonymous with and akin to when Hitler called the Czech president to negotiate, and then he entered Sudetenland in 1936. So as the Czech president is going into Germany, German troops are entering the Sudetenland to annex the Sudetenland, the very area and territory that they were going to negotiate upon. So, the, I mean, the tactics are Hitlerian, right? And one could argue that Hitler had a much greater casus belli than the United States against Iran. At the very least, at least his wars were proximate to Germany. This war isn't even proximate to the United States. There's no threat. There's no threat. And any person who says there is an actual threat of the Islamic Republic of Iran on the United States per se, and not the United States real president and his regime, Milokoski or whatever his real name is, Netanyahu in Israel, is an absolute dunce. Okay, third criterion. There must be serious prospects for success. Are there any clear objectives to this war? No. It's weird because to call these series of wars in the Middle East, from Libya, Syria, Iraq, regime change wars, that's glorifying them. That's holding them up to a standard that's way too high. It's more like regime collapse wars. And then, like Lindsey Graham says, well, it's not up to us what happens in the aftermath. Huh? Afghanistan. Yeah. You fight the longest war in American history. You fight the longest war in American history, costing almost $2 trillion in Afghanistan. And then you hand power back to the same entity you began the war against. Yeah. 4, the use of arms must not produce evils and disorders graver than the evil to be eliminated. That just is a great segue right into, if you have regime collapse wars, that is inherently evil. It's inherently evil to create the conditions by which real violent upheaval, chaos, and civil war take place. Again, people don't realize that while Persians, i.e. Iranians, because Iran is just the Persian word for, it's the Farsi word for Persian, for Persia, right? While they make up the bulk and the largest minority group, there are Kurds, there are Azerbaijanis, there are just a number of different ethnic groups. There are a large Armenian and largely Christian population in Iran. And people should realize, too, that there are scores of Christian churches, Catholic, Chaldean Catholic. There are Armenian Christian, Assyrian Christian, Chaldean Christian churches all throughout Iran. And Christians, by and large, although sometimes restricted from proselytizing or something like that, but that's like in the entire Muslim world. And certainly is the case in Israel, where the treatment of Christians is deplorable. And people just don't realize either. It's like these demonic emissaries that are Christian Zionists. Israel is the greatest enemy of Christians in the Middle East. And Israel has this demonic, concupiscent, Talmudic tendency to make sure that the Goyim and Christians are all fighting each other. And they just love and rage on about that. So wake up, wake up. To the extent that, Israeli officials have admitted that they have allied themselves with, and when wounded on the battlefields, Al-Qaeda and ISIS fighters get healthcare and free treatment in Israel. Did you know that?
No.
What's the one country in the Middle East where ISIS and Al-Qaeda have not attacked? Israel. Is that coincidental? No, of course it's part of the formula. It's part of the system. Of course, and then, so those are the 4 main criteria of jus ad bellum. Now, what about jus in bellum? What has to dictate right action while war is being conducted? First, discrimination. The non-combatants have immunity. The deliberate targeting of civilians is always forbidden. Would it take an hour for the Israeli US savage attacks to target civilians instead of military or strategic installations. And then proportionality and means. The force used in specific military actions must be proportionate to the military objective. Israel has never respected that. Never. Look at the topography of Gaza and ask, do you think the Israelis have any compulsion toward obeying or abiding by such a restriction on their murderous and genocidal activities? And the answer is no. That's their modus operandi. That's what they are created to do. That's their essence. And as Norman Finkelstein says, the problem isn't Netanyahu, and the problem isn't Ben Gvir, and the problem isn't Naftali Bennett in the Knesset or in the War Department of the IDF. The problem is Israeli society itself. It is a sick, malignant, satanic cult of Talmudic followers who have somehow cast a spell over the elites of the world and who largely share in the same either Satanism or atheism to destroy God-fearing, good-willed people throughout the world, and certainly use Islamic devotion and manipulate Islamic or adherence to Islam, and conversely, um, manipulating and trying to mutate Christianity into Christian Zionism to have Christians and Muslims at each other's throats in perpetuity, whether it's by introducing hordes of Muslims because they've been displaced by the continuous wars in the Middle East or regime change in North Africa and like Libya to flood into Europe and displace Europeans, or it's just in the actual fighting of these wars themselves, the wars per se.
Yeah.
So yes, in a just world, the guillotine would the blade would have to be sharpened a lot from overuse.
Third order Dominican, not his case, not looking so great right now.
No, they never have. Aside from again, Catherine Siena, lone. Catherine of Siena is the lone exception. I don't know. Probably in the 14th century, they were pretty solid. But
Are there any others?
any other third order Dominicans of note?
No, sorry. Just war theory.
No, those are the four. I mean, we could go into some nuance here. The church's teaching emphasizes that all citizens and governments are obliged to work for the avoidance of war. Yeah. How contrary is the very existence of the United States, modern United States and Israel. Um, the evaluation of these conditions belongs to the prudential judgment of those responsible for the common good. Okay, so this is where, again, we have to make a distinction that, and to the credit in the language of the catechism, that doesn't mean, they're not saying that that's elected officials. And this is what we always make the distinction when you and I have had those episodes, or we've talked about whether it's Romans or First Timothy, and it seems as though in Pauline or other epistle literature that there's this kind of submission or obsequiousness toward the state, right? And loyalty toward righteous authorities. But you have to always distinguish between what are legitimate authorities and parasitical, illegitimate, coercive powers that rule over you in a despotic way. Those aren't legitimate authorities. It goes, finally, this is the last sentence. The doctrine draws from St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, but is presented in this form from Summaries of the Catechism of 1993 of the Catholic Church. There you go.
Yep.
Pretty cut and dry there, huh? I mean, there's not a lot of ambiguity
No.
because they fail in every count. They
Right.
don't even approach, like no one could
Yeah, there's not
possibly make
one.
an
There's not
argument.
one that we. There's none of those four.
Not debatable.
We're saying, oh, they're getting close there.
Yeah, we're like, oh, they're really trying on that one. Nope. And really, I have to forgive me if I'm not in a position, Lord, or I'm not being properly humble, but you got to pass judgment on the church. Where's the church official? I mean, Leo puts out a kind of feckless, limp-wristed, well, par for the course statement about how he's greatly concerned about escalating violence in the Middle East. Oh yeah, okay. I mean, you might as well. You could have just put that in the fax machine and just hit send, send, send. Just hit the green button or whatever, and just send that out to press for the past what entire existence of Israel in the Middle East, usurpative and larcenous and parasitic and violent and bellicose all at the same time, genocidal. And then, but where are these bishops where they could say you could say other than some courageous ones like Cardinal Pizzaballa in the Holy Land, saying this is a this is an antichrist evil that's going on here. Uh, it's like they don't have the language. They certainly don't have the theological backing or knowledge to make an argument either in just defense of Catholic just war theory and teaching, or that attempts by Christian Zionists or Jews to hasten the appearance of or return of the Messiah or their Messiah is really just hastening the Antichrist. So fuck them all. I hate them. And I mean I shouldn't say I love them as images of God, but they're so obscuring and so they're so eviscerating the image of God and goodness of the Creator and His Word and themselves by these murderous and Judas-like actions. 30 pieces of silver, $7,000 for social media influencers, all of them. There, there's righteous contempt that ought to be. In the words of Chrysostom and Ambrose, uh, they are to be condemned.
Anything else on that? Do you
Not
want
really.
do you want to talk about a town that also doesn't like Donald Trump very much?
Well, I joined. I for a lot of the wrong reasons, but strange bedfellows, I guess.
Meanwhile in Oak Park.
Should go to your gay suburb now.
Here it is. The
Excuse
people
me.
segment. Meanwhile, in Oak Park, brought to you by Trenton Brewing. We've got three fairly quick ones today. Oh, wait, I gotta save that one. That's the opinion piece. I'm gonna start saving those.
I'm so focused on Israel and righteous indignation toward Israel. I thought that said goys at first instead of guys.
This is having trouble with my screen
Uh-oh.
share.
Oak Park. Meanwhile, in Oak Park, tech difficulties. I don't think this has ever happened.
This is something that I've actually been struggling with is screen sharing for some reason.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
Maybe you have to cut this part out. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Here we go. D97 parents wanted added supports for migrant students and families. Board members welcome concerns, ask for more dialogue.
The conversation has to go on.
14
Oh,
members of the
there's a guy in a mask. There's a guy in a mask in the front
Oh,
row.
I didn't even notice that the first time. 14 members of the Oak Park community, most of them parents of elementary and middle school students attending Oak Park Elementary School District 97 schools, made public comments at the February 24th District 97 school board meeting, urging district officials to take further steps to protect students from enhanced federal action targeting undocumented immigrants. The speakers implored the district to create school-based safety teams, provide school-facilitated legal support for families, put up clear District 97 signage around schools, informing federal agents that they are not allowed on school property without a judicial warrant, provide rapid response training to district staff, create a sanctuary policy, create a clear safety plan for transportation to and from school for vulnerable students and families, provide professional development to school staff so that they are better able to deal with trauma that some students are feeling, and provide psychological support to help students manage their anxiety and fear.
That's a lot of responsibilities for a school district or school, elementary schools especially, right? I mean, it's
Who's going to pay
reminds
for all
me of
that
in his
too?
back. Right. Well, the Oak Parkers are going to pay for it. And by the way, it reminds me of how the American cathedral, this is a great line from Tom Woods. The American religion and cathedral is American public schooling. Like that is it is both the institution that cannot be assailed or questioned with religious fervor. It has to have that type of allegiance if you're to be a true, honorable, especially progressive American. But beyond that, it's also the locus where all problems of society are supposed to be resolved.
Yeah.
What, can't they just finger paint?
Some of the speakers said that other school districts, such as the Chicago Public Schools and an Evanston School District, have more robust policies and practices to protect vulnerable students than District 97 seems to have. Later in the meeting, school board members discussed the issue and expressed the desire to work with parents and the community on these issues. School board member Becky Perez, who noted that her parents were undocumented immigrants for decades before becoming United States citizens,
They were criminals. Yay.
said she thought the district was already providing some of the things that the public commenters were asking for. Quote, I do hope to be able to respond to the community's request to continue to have these conversations, Perez said. It's just important that we have the
It just never ends, does it?
conversation. Megan Carter, the parent of a third grader and a first grader at Longfellow, said that every District 97 school should have a designated point person trained to deal with federal agents and support vulnerable students and families.
What are they exactly supposed to do? If the agent comes in with a warrant, they're not.
Yeah, what type of
Does that open the door for them?
Yeah. What does that training entail?
Yeah.
Quote,
Are you
I'm
gonna really
here-
tell these people to stand in the way of an ICE agent? I mean,
right. Good luck.
yeah.
Quote, I'm here today because I'm concerned our schools are still not adequately prepared, said Carter.
They
who
never
was
get
a
into again, what are they supposed to be doing in just bare knuckles, re- basic language? What does preparedness look like? Are they gonna shut down the school? Pull the fire alarms?
I have no doubt that district staff, teachers, paraprofessionals, and every school staff person wants to do the right thing. I want the board to equip them to do that. Well,
What is that, people?
they're just trying to get, it's just jobs.
Just smoke screen, yeah.
They're trying to get people jobs that
Yeah, well, that too.
where they don't have to do anything.
Right.
Some speakers said D97 should provide expanded transportation for vulnerable students, expand after school programs to keep vulnerable kids and families safe, and provide remote learning options for students whose families are afraid to send them to school.
They all think they're Harriet Tubman running the
Just-
Underground Railroad.
Just homeschool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good. Except not in Oak Park. That's anathema too.
Quote, as a Mexican American woman, I've been afraid to walk my daughter to and from school by myself, said Christina Ocon, the parent of second grader at Longfellow and a member of the Longfellow PTO. Quote, I make sure that I always have appropriate identification that signals my American citizenship out of fear of being profiled.
Okay. How many times has this person actually been stopped or detained? 0.
2 current and 1 former D97 teacher also spoke, urging the district to do more. An emotional Nicole Mendez, a bilingual transitional teacher at homeschool, spoke about the impact the federal action is having on students. Quote, this year we have witnessed firsthand how the fear of immigration enforcement has affected our students' ability to learn and feel safe at school, Mendez said. Recently, our community lost a 5th grade student and his family after they were detained and forced to return to their home country in the middle of the school year. We also have students across the district and family members who are currently detained. These events have had a profound impact on our school community. Many impacted families are afraid to leave their homes, leading to financial instability and the loss of work. Some parents are fearful of going to work, attending appointments, and going to school events.
Isn't this just the natural outcomes of when you enter a country illegally and attempt to work there without proper documentation? I mean, what is this?
Mendez said the impact on students has been noticeable. Quote, in our classrooms, we are seeing increased absenteeism, heightened anxiety, and a noticeable decline in focus and academic engagement, Mendez said. Students have expressed a strong need to process and talk about their feelings. However, a Spanish-speaker social worker who was hired for this job was asked to work for a leave at a different school. Therefore, that person has limited availability to meet with the students. Mendez called for the district to offer more consistent social work services for threatened students and families, specifically having a Spanish-speaking provider of these services. Quote, every child in District 97 deserves to feel safe, supported, and protected at school, Mendez said. School board member Jung Kim said that the school district could not require staff to undergo rapid response training, but could offer it to those staff members who are interested. Quote, we can't have the district ask people to put themselves potentially in harm's way, right? But if people are asking for this training, we can facilitate that, Kim said.
What kind of training are they going to give
What
them?
is the training?
Yeah, what is the training? How are you going to thwart an ICE arrest or detention? It's just not going to happen. So, okay, let's go on to Venus Hurd Johnson or whatever
Board
her name.
member Venus Hurd Johnson said she was very impressed with the public comments and said that the district was already doing some of the things that were asked for, but she said that the district wouldn't be able to do everything that was asked for.
What are the things?
Well, we're not going to be able to allay all their allay. I've never seen that word.
Yeah,
Allay,
LA just yeah, LA.
allay all their concerns, and we're also not going to be able to do everything that was asked her, Johnson said. Board member Gavin Kearney said he would like the district to host a town hall to discuss the issues and for the district to communicate clearly what it is already doing.
Oh, this is all so feminine, you know?
Like other board members, Nancy Ross Dreeben said she was impressed with the specificity of the asks by the public commenters and how they tied their demands to specific district policies.
Such as?
Wow. In a newsletter the district sent to parents after the meeting, the district said it was already addressing student safety and other concerns in the wake of the federal activities. Quote, district leadership and the Board of Education are aligned in the importance of strong, well-established safety practices, the district's newsletter stated. Throughout the school year, our team has been actively reviewing and strengthening protocols designed to guide our response to a wide range of situations and support safe school environments for all students. We'll go through this one quick. Oak Park considers down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. Oak Park would provide $6,000 to 80 households over 5 years as part of push to help new home buyers. How can Oak
You
Park help,
subsidize something?
how can Oak Park help people buy their first homes when local prices keep climbing? Oak Park Village trustees heard village staff's recommendations for programs to support people purchasing their first homes with the hope of making more of those purchases happen within village limits. The board has hosted discussions on the topic periodically since the village adopted its strategic vision for housing report 2 years ago. Quote, this is a significant step forward towards advancing the strategic vision for housing that was adopted by the board in 2024. This is Kevin Jackson, village manager. We'll hopefully get direction from the board on the home ownership plan that's being recommended by staff.
How pissed are those people that did the minority? Remember the minority housing thing?
Oh, yeah.
How pissed are they now?
That
First-time home buyers, they could be white.
That 2024 report revealed that there was a more than $230,000 gap between the median cost of a family home in Oak Park and what a household bringing in the median income for Metro Chicago can afford. Homebuyer counseling and education programs, mortgage credits, and a down payment assistance program targeting new home buyers were among the strategies village staff recommended for supporting potential first-time home buyers in the village and addressing the ongoing affordability crisis.
There's never going to be a mention here of, I'll guarantee, a zoning or all of the regulations and restrictions that make home builders or make Oak Park just like the restricted area that it is for home builders. I mean,
the proposed down payment assistance program would seek to assist first-time home buyers purchasing in the village, with the program providing households $6,000 to go towards down payments. Many of the forgivable loans would likely support people buying condos, as condo purchases have been identified as a, quote, gateway to homeownership, as the median cost of a single-family home in Oak Park soars past $550K, increasing by more than 20% since last year.
whew,
The proposed down payment assistance program would cost $96,000 per year for a total of $480,000 over 5 years, aiming to help approximately 80 households earning less than 120% of the area median income in that span. Less than 120% of the area median income.
yeah. I mean, what's the area? I mean, we're talking about people making $40,000 a year, right?
Quote, there's no silver bullet to fixing affordable homeownership in Oak Park, Birch said. It's about cobbling together many different things. Thanks. Cobbling.
Got to cobble together many different
Just gotta
things.
keep cobbling. Birch cited 2022 Census Bureau data revealing that home ownership rates in Oak Park lag behind nationwide and regional averages across demographics, but the largest disparity is among Black Oak Parkers. According to the census data, 35% of Black Oak Park households own their home, compared to 41% of Black households across Northeast Illinois and 43% of Black households nationwide.
What
There's
about Percy Julian's daughter?
there's
Does
a
that count? Or-
35% gap between the Black and white homeownership rates in Oak Park, which is 5 points larger than the gap that exists nationally. Interesting. Isn't that interesting?
Huh.
There's a 5 points larger than the gap that exists in the rest of the nation.
That's got to be so galling to Oak Parkers.
So this is a whole lot of nothing towards the end. Trustee Corey Wesley said the lack of housing supply would be the biggest challenge to a down payment assistance program's effectiveness. Quote, I feel like this is a
Do you
challenge,
think?
and I'm hugely supportive of this, Wesley said. I don't see how that level of supply will allow us to take this program and make it meaningful.
Hey, all right. Good for you, buddy.
The first issue we have, the bigger issue we have is supply.
Wow, it's like Milton Friedman on this board.
The board did not vote on whether or not to approve any of the proposed programs, with more discussion of the initiatives expected at a future meeting. Okay, last one. Opinion piece, letters to the editor. Guys, show some gratitude March 8th. Without looking, do you know what March 8th is?
No idea.
Okay. Guys, show some gratitude March 8th by Joe Harrington. Valentine's Day has come and gone. It's been around a long time. In 496 AD, Pope Galatius I named it. The oldest known written Valentine is from 1415. By the mid 1850s, mass-produced cards came along. Hallmark came about in 1913. Hard to miss it when it comes around. Very commercialized. But there's another day coming up soon, March 8th. Unlike Valentine's Day, this observation focuses exclusively on women. It's called International Women's Day.
Oh, good Lord.
Guys, when March 8th comes around, any special woman or women in your life ought to be shown you care. More cards, candy, and flowers? Maybe. At least a verbal acknowledgement, appreciation, and beyond. If you are not familiar with IWD, International Women's Day, it commemorates women's fight for equality and liberation. This special date gives focus to women's struggles for reproductive rights.
Of course, you got to be able to liberate. True liberation for women is being able to kill your child,
as well as against violence and abuse aimed at them. It started in the early 20th century. The designation of this day began as Working Women's Day at the 1910 International Socialist Women's Conference in Copenhagen.
Whoa.
In 1922, Vladimir Lenin declared March 8th International Women's Day. Educational, I will bet, for many.
Oh, well, hey. Well, as long as Lenin was your spokesperson, this is something to be celebrated. Yeah.
Has progress been made in the last 100 years or so? Well, yes and no. Here in the US, the women's movement was part of 1960s protests covering gender and racial equality, along with the anti-war demonstrations. Those battles are still being fought. Racism hasn't stopped. War seems perpetual. As for women, who only a little over 100 years ago won the right to vote, there are now rumblings from higher ups in our government that advocate for that right to be taken away.
No one in the upper reaches of government or this regime want the 19th Amendment repealed. It's sensible people who are not part of the government in this regime who are arguing for that. I would be one of those.
Keep in mind, it will be 4 years ago this June that Roe versus Wade was overturned.
Yeah, it did a wonderful job of stemming the actual numbers of abortions, right? They're all up.
Not exactly a Valentine sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, Valentine's Day is all about, again, romantically involving yourself with people and then procreating and then killing and snuffing out the baby's life within the mother's womb. That's love. Talk about a Valentine's Day card.
Creepy, ugly, disgustingly sexist, to say the least. But this nastiness is all pending legislatively in what is called the SAVE Act. You may have heard of it. It has to do with requiring a few layers of required identification in order to vote. Given that married women probably still take their husband's last name, critics see the act as clearly wanting to deny women the ability to vote, as was the case until 1920.
How does that square that circle for me, Charlie? I mean, again, women taking their husbands' names and having the inability to make sure that their name is actually that they register to vote with their married name instead of that is the major impediment for women voting. If only. If only that was the case.
There's a lot wrong with our current government.
No shit, Sherlock.
Both major parties are culpable in this backward trending movement. Given that 2026 midterm election is in the crosshairs of the current administration, not to mention 2028, and the so-called, quote, opposition party is all bark and no bite, women are again on notice. We all are. In the meantime, when March 8th comes around, think about what it stands for. None of us would be here if not for a woman. Show some gratitude.
Joe Harrington, Oak Park, who, it should be noted, heroically submitted this letter while on his period.
That's the people segment.
Meanwhile in Oak Park.
What would have happened if I'd gone for it and just said, no, I'm gay. Meanwhile in Oak Park.
There it is.
Trident Brewing. Wow. I think I might need to take like another protein shake or something. I felt some testosterone leave just reading that at the end.
Yo, where's all the testosterone gone? Well, it's not flowing toward Joe Harrington, I'll tell you that much.
No.
Doesn't find a home in the Harrington household. Let's I want to just briefly touch upon I think part of the despair when we're living in such dark times and you have an unjust war being perpetrated on an innocent people with no just cause for that war, what you can do. Yeah, I mean, I think for ordinary people, it's just pray, fast, engage in other supplications because those are going to be the most efficacious things that can bring about hopefully an end to the war and some type of peace to reign for people of goodwill. And then acting prudently when the time comes when you're called upon or put in a situation to, try to mitigate or lessen or take away altogether their ability to create injustice. In other words, the approach to war is in very many ways because it's so non-proximate and so distant and out of our hands and control, unfortunately. It can be frustrating, but if the occasion presents itself to, especially in your spiritual life, to call upon the Lord and the saints and angels to intervene, then that's the way I think you should go, and that's how you maintain holiness and sanity. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Fasting, especially during
Yeah,
Lent.
fasting is so powerful. So almsgiving.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. Most of the black pill and misery that surrounds the world is just detachment from all the good, true and beautiful, right? That's where it
From the
starts.
transcendentals, yeah. Yeah, it's modernist materialism that's born of Satan and and his synagogue. So stay away from it and do what you can.
We fight back though.
Yep. Amen. Lord Jesus, come. Amen.
Amen. All right.
All right. See you next time.
Take care, everyone. God bless.